Hey, I am nervous. We're gonna do this. Okay. I know what you all are wondering right now. And no, I did not do my hair. Hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Ashley C. And seeing as this is my very first YouTube video, everyone here is a trailblazer. So look at you. Look at you. Just trailblazing. We are here to talk about the Stauffers. And I mean, I know that my opinion is not going to be one that is shared by a lot of people, but I have reasons for it, and that's why I really wanted to upload this video and just show my thinking. Now, if you are not familiar with the Stauffers, I'll just give you a very basic outline of kind of what's been going on, and I'll also link to a couple of other videos that you can watch to get more perspective and context. But just for this video, I'm just gonna go into like the basics and then go into why I think they actually did make the right decision. Okay, here we go. Myka and James Stauffer were, you know, trying to lead that YouTube, Instagram influencer life. And a few years ago, they decided they wanted a fourth child. And their fourth child, they decided, needed to be three things: adopted, from China, and with special needs. So they adopted their child. Years go by, they get sponsorships, they get deals, they have another biological child, and then they decide they no longer want their adopted child who is nonverbal and has autism. So the world, rightfully so, was like, excuse me, like you can't just throw your child away. Like, what are you doing? And of course this became even bigger because they kind of tried to hide it. They were not forthcoming with any of this information, even though they knew that a lot of people were fans of them initially through their adoption journey and their adopted child. So I think a lot of their own following just felt kind of betrayed. And then as the wider world found out about it, people like me were just like, oh my gosh, like, wow, you're kind of a horrible person. Like, you're horrible people, right? Like, you're horrible people. And they've been facing the backlash of that pretty much ever since. And I think this happened about 2 months ago. So this month is August. And I think this happened around June. I may be a bit off with the dates. Beneath one of their videos, Myka commented and said that if they had to make a similar decision with one of their biological children, they would have. Now, honestly, a lot of people were like, I say BS on that. And saying like, no, you wouldn't have. Like, if this was your biological child, you would not have given him up just because he was autistic and nonverbal and hard to handle, or whatever their reasons were. I think they tried to basically blame their child in so many words, which I mean, it's horrible. It's honestly horrible. Like, they're pretty despicable people. And And yeah, they're just kind of despicable. But a lot of people were like looking at this comment and saying, you're a liar, like you would not have done this. And the more I watched some of these videos and the more I kept hearing like, you wouldn't have done this if this was your biological child, something kept like, something got lodged in my brain and I just could not get rid of it. And that's why I'm making this video. I started to think about, how does this fit into the context of the way I know the world kind of works, right? Like, yes, these people are not great, right? Like I said, I had my, I'm right there with you with like the collective anger and like the, you know, literally like the righteous indignation of this whole situation. But are they an anomaly? And would they have made this decision with their biological child? Now, of course, I and the world may never truly know, unless, and even now they, you know, even if they had another kid and that child was autistic, at this point, they're, you know, their decisions are clearly going to be, you know, biased and based in the things that they have previously said. So if they would have honestly done this with their biological child, I don't know. But what I do know is that as a system, we don't take care of our children who are not neurotypical. And then I started to think like, hold on a second, Ashley, like really think about this. Like, there are a lot of issues going on with the Stauffers, right? There's greed, exploitation, exoticism, honestly a lot of other stuff that, you know, you just go on and on and on in about all the layers of yuckiness that this represents. But what I really want to focus on is, are they an anomaly? How did the Stauffers come to be? Like, they didn't just pop up out of thin air, and yet the anger that they are receiving and the backlash that they are receiving is oftentimes framed as, look at these two specific people and look at how horrible they are. And as an aside, like, I will say I think Myka gets more hate than James, and I think this is because of our ideas about motherhood. And all I'm gonna say is just like, I've seen videos that have either focused on Myka or focused on both of them, and I do think that Myka gets a bit, like, I think she gets more hate than is deserved, because they both made the decision. They both made the decision. All the decisions. They both made all the decisions. So, anyways, that's just an aside and something I noticed. Back to, you know, what we're talking about, which is the context of the Stauffers, right? So, would these people have done this to their biological child? And what does it mean that what does what they did mean? Because I think if we don't place what they've done into a larger context, we as a society, we don't learn anything from this. We think, oh, these two people are bad, but actually our society supports these kinds of things, right? Like, we made what they chose to do possible, and not just possible, but like to make sense. And I actually think that, like, I can sort of see how they came to their decision, and at the end of the day, I'd rather their former child be in a safe and loving environment than with them. And so I'm happy that like, happy is the wrong word, right? I'm not happy. I want their former child to be happy, and I am sad that we encouraged these types of thoughts and behaviors in people like the Stauffers. And I'm gonna show you how that happens. So, I'm gonna start with just the idea of parenting and autism, right? So we often think of parents of children with autism as heroes, and I already can see it coming. They are. Like, you guys, I'm not a parent. Honestly, most all parents are heroes in some way, but parents of children with special needs, and right now we're talking about children with autism, like, the parents who give their children love and respect and care for what they need and want deserve all the love in the world. And if this isn't about you, it's not about you, right? Like, I am not talking about parents who are bending over backwards and sacrificing to take care of their child. Like, I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about you. Who I am talking about is kind of us. And I know that can be hard. I know that can be hard to understand. But I am not talking about an individual at this point. This will lead right to the individuals, and in this case the Stauffers. But when I say, like, we all think of parents of autistic children as heroes, it is true. We think of parents of autistic children as heroes. And who do heroes fight? Heroes fight villains. And we have a history of seeing autism as the villain. And then we have heroes. And heroes are the parents who are, like, fighting the autism. But we forget that there's a child in this equation. And for that child, you know, autism is a part of who they are. Autism often, you know, colors the way that you see and interact with the world. And to just paint autism as this big bad villain who we have to continuously fight against is a part of this reason that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, autism, it's like this big bad monster. Now I'm gonna play a clip from a video called I Am Autism, and it was produced by one of the largest autism nonprofits in the country, maybe the world. I'm not sure about that, but they're huge. They're a huge nonprofit, and they actually created this. They created it a while ago, like not too long ago, but you'll see by the resolution that it's not good, but you'll still be able to get the gist.
I am autism. I'm visible in your children, but if I can help it, I am invisible to you until it's too late. I know where you live, and guess what? I live there too. I hover around all of you. I know no color barrier, no religion, no morality, no currency. I speak your language fluently, and with every voice I take away, I acquire yet another language. I work very quickly. I work faster than pediatric AIDS, cancer, and diabetes combined. And if you are happily married, I will make sure that your marriage fails. Your money will fall into my hands, and I will bankrupt you for my own self-gain. I don't sleep, so I make sure you don't either. I will make it virtually impossible for your family to easily attend a temple, a birthday party, a public park, without a struggle, without embarrassment, without pain. You have no cure for me. Your scientists don't have the resources, and I relish their desperation.
In that video, you hear they're talking about divorce and bankruptcy and no sleep and no fun, and your life has been ruined by autism. However, autism is in your child, like your child is autistic. Like, it's not this separate entity, right, that you can fight against. If I also say parents, I do also mean like caregivers, guardians, anyone who has a responsibility to care for and love and develop a young person with autism. So I'm going to say parents, but I really mean all of those people. And I just wanted to make that clear, especially because of, like, the language in the video is definitely about parents. But I am talking about, like, multiple folks. So as you can see from that video, it's a big yikes. It's a big yikes. And it's not unheard of, right? Like, that isn't an anomaly. Like, that clip is not out of the blue. Like, we have these ideas and feelings about what it means to have a child who is autistic. And that video goes on to, you know, then talk about how parents who stick around are literal warriors fighting against autism every day. And they also go on to say, like, some of the ways that they help people fight against autism. They use, and this is a quote, these are the things that they use to fight against autism. And it's technology, voodoo, herbs, prayer, and kinetic studies. Now, I bring this up because it emphasizes, again, how we have come to view autism. Voodoo. Now, I don't know a lot about voodoo, but I'm pretty sure there's prayer in voodoo. So if you're saying prayers, why are you saying voodoo? You didn't say Christianity. And I'll tell you why they said voodoo. They said it because, and actually, this is another aside, the reasons that they said it has real roots in racism, and I'm just not even going to go into that in this video because I personally think it should be obvious. I'm going to assume that they're talking about American Louisiana voodoo, and I mean, they didn't say hoodoo, so I don't think they're talking about that. And I don't think they're talking about, well, I don't even know if they know the difference between different kinds of voodoo, or like that it's practiced in other countries. But I tell you what, the fact that they mentioned it has racist roots. All right, back to what we were talking about. So they mention voodoo because they want to emphasize the extreme routes that they're willing to go to fight the big bad boogeyman of autism. And that is important, right? So they're linking extreme practices with parents being warriors and heroes and fighting against autism. And that child, right? The child, the person with autism has been removed from this equation. And this is important with the Stauffers because I really do think, like, when they were first entering this adventure, belching, right? When they were first entering this adventure, I mean, they probably weren't like, ooh, think of all the accolades we're gonna get when we're real heroes. But they were probably like, we're pretty good parents. I bet we could be pretty good parents to a child with special needs. Which honestly is a very commendable decision. It's a very commendable way of thinking. And again, I don't know their intentions. I don't know what they were really thinking. But we often, right, pose these parents as heroes, and I'm sure that looks very attractive to people, especially people who are like already a little narcissistic. It seems like the right thing to do. I could make myself a hero while also taking care of someone and getting some views. So they're heroes, but then they are living right with their child. And I read somewhere that they went on like 7 trips in the first year of their adoption. And I'm just like, 7 trips? Okay. First off, shouldn't you set up a routine? Like, I'm not a parent. However, if I had a child who was coming into a new home and a new environment and a new family, I think I would put like their growth and comfort on the front burner. You know what? That's me being judgy. It is. But anyways, I say this because as they actually were living with their child, I think they realized, oh, I see. Like, they started to see that this is a very real thing that they have to deal with every single day. And then it goes back to the beginning of that clip, right? The bankruptcy, no fun, no sleep, no trips. And they were like, no, we're not about that lifestyle. Like, we're literally not about that lifestyle. Look at our channel. They just were not having it. And like, when you have this idea of like heroes and warriors fighting this, and they're like, ooh, maybe these things are too powerful for us as parents to fight, then what? Right? Instead of phrasing it more along the lines of, hey, do you love and support and, you know, want to give your child what they need? Like, you don't have to be a warrior. You don't have to fight these things out. There should be support. And this also goes back to what I was saying. Like, this is all of our faults. Like, we do not support parents. We do not support children who have special needs. Like, we don't have these supports up and ready for people to grab. Now, the Stauffers, I mean, they have a lot of resources, frankly. Like, I'm not in their pockets. I'm not their accountant. But they seem to have some money. They have more money than I do. I'll say that. I don't know their money, but they have more money than I do. And they have a lot more money than a lot of other parents do with special needs kids. And they also have the means to fundraise for their child, which I think they've already did. So I don't know if that kind of reasoning really fits with them. But I'm telling you, that's what they saw. They were like, oh no, we're in the beginning of the video and I don't know if we can be those warriors who like stick it out till the end. So every time the Stauffers would look at their child, they would just see bankruptcy, no sleep, no fun, no trips, you know, not fitting into our aesthetic as these things that they were supposed to fight against, right? And be warriors and strong and heroes. And I think they were like, or maybe, right? I don't know what they were thinking, but I think when you sort of pose things in that kind of way, people start to think, well, I'm not strong enough. I couldn't possibly be able to overcome these things. So maybe I should just like give up. And I think phrasing these things more along the lines of like, I love my child. I want to support my child. I want to support my child who has autism. I am not fighting autism, right? I'm uplifting my child's needs and desires and wants. I think has a very different feel to it. And again, right, this is all in explaining like how we get to the Stauffers. And I think these kinds of ideas play into why they chose to try to find a child who with special needs. I think there was something about like being the hero that probably drew them into that. And I think that you know, having to be the hero, then in the end was something that they thought, oh, you know, we can't really do that. We're gonna just kind of give up. Now, again, like earlier I said, would they have done this with their biological child? And of course we don't really know, and we never will really know, but we can look at other families and see just how common is this. Now, I could not find information or statistics about adoptions, most likely because a lot of adoptions happen privately, and I just don't think the government is as involved with like all adoptions. But I did find information about foster care, and I will make sure that all of my sources are in the description box, so feel free, you know, to go through and read. But what I did find was that if you have autism, you are 2.4 times more likely to end up in foster care than a neurotypical child. And that is not just like generally not neurotypical. Like, I'm talking about autism. If a child has autism, you are 2.4 times more likely to end up in foster care than a neurotypical child. Now, there are many reasons that children end up in foster care. However, when it comes to autistic children, because of the often medical and healthcare needs, there's actually a lot more statistics and reporting available. So I was able to find an article that kind of condensed the main reasons that children who are autistic end up in foster care. And the number one reason seemed to be resources. Their families just did not have the resources to give their children the care that they needed. And sometimes that would play out, well, that could play out in many different ways, right? Like, that could be someone who can't afford to go to a residential facility, and then the police get called for some reason. Like, maybe an incident happened and the police come because there's no one in the house maybe who can calm down this person, or who can give this person the care that they need immediately, even though everyone there knows that that child probably shouldn't, like, the child is not getting anywhere near the care and that they need. Sometimes people put their child in foster care because once you're in foster care, you get access to Medicaid. And it can actually be kind of hard to qualify for Medicaid if you also have to take care of a household, right? Like, if you need to make enough money to feed everyone, but you also don't make enough money to have adequate health care, what are you supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do? So healthcare ends up being a really big reason that children who are autistic go into foster care. And then the second and third reasons seem to be family stress and like being overwhelmed with many things. That could be being like overwhelmed with financial problems, overwhelmed, and then the parents, because they're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, then start to self-medicate. Lots of different things. But stress and feeling overwhelmed are like the next two things under healthcare. Now, I know the Stauffers like to say that they just couldn't give their child, their former child, the care that they needed, that he needed. I personally don't buy it. I just don't. I think that they weren't willing to spend enough to give their child the care that he needed. And you know what? If that's how they felt, that's how they felt. It is. It is how they felt. Like, it's gross. But it is a reason, right, that a lot of people end up having to give their children up. I also think they were probably feeling stressed and overwhelmed. And the reason that I say that is because a lot of times when parents are feeling stressed and overwhelmed, this can lead to neglect and abuse. And I think it's been pretty clear that some of the things that the Stauffers did to their child were borderline abuse, if not abuse. I'm not gonna go into all the things they did because I just don't want to read all of them. But they did things like taping the boy's hands, and I think like refusing to give him like certain things that he needed. You can find out about those things, but borderline abuse, and definitely not like the care and love that he needed. And I mean, I'd rather he go somewhere where he'll get love and what he needs than stay with a family that's feeling stressed and overwhelmed, and that could lead to abuse. Because, and abuse leads to worse things. And I'm not saying that the Stauffers would have gone along this route. Again, I don't know them. You probably don't know them. But what I am saying is that abuse of autistic children is not unheard of. It just isn't. And because of how we frame autism, oftentimes abuse doesn't even appear to be abuse to the parents, right? They see it as maybe an extreme tactic to stop a behavior. With the tape, right? They're clear example, taping that poor boy's hand, so I think to stop him from sucking his thumb. It's a no. It's a no. But because of the way, right, we place because of how we place autism, and because of how we place parents as these warriors and fighters, to them it's not abuse. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if they were like, you know, like, oh my gosh, abuse, what are you even talking about? Like, that's not what we were doing. And they really don't think that's what they're doing. What they think they're doing is fighting autism. They're trying to get a part of their life back, right? They're trying to get a part of the, like, no sleep, no fun, whatever part they think they're fighting. But what they're doing is like causing more trauma for their child and not helping anybody. They're not helping anyone. So I want to just place in context that, like, all of these things, right, are a part of the same story. So yes, abuse often leads to more abuse, and then sometimes it even leads to death. I know, you're like, Ashley, calm down. Death? Yes, death. And I'm not gonna calm down. I'm not gonna calm down because this happens. So the Stauffer thing happened, I think it was revealed around June, maybe May. But I know for a fact in May of this year, 2020, a woman in Florida killed her nonverbal autistic son. And then she tried to blame it on like a black guy. Again, awful people. All of them are awful people. But she killed her nonverbal autistic son. And before it came out that she was the one who murdered him, you know, she was saying, oh, he's in a better place. The community was saying, like, she loved her son so much. Like, she was always taking him down to, like, this educational center and giving him what he needs. I mean, I think a lot of parents, right, don't see how how these things can lead to killing. Now, a more straightforward case was just earlier this year in January. A man had 2 biological, and I should mention too, the case in May was a biological child. A man had 2 biological sons who were both autistic. Him and his girlfriend abused both of them and ended up killing the younger son. He froze to death because he was forced to sleep in a garage in New Jersey in winter. And those were 2 national cases. Those 2 cases made national news. Now, every case does not make national news. So you can pretty much surmise that if these 2 made national news, there are others that didn't. And again, I am not saying that these Stauffers would have killed their son. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that, sorry, my allergies. What I am saying is that the Stauffers fit into this context of how we view autism and how they are warriors fighting against autism. Their tactics can maybe extreme, but these tactics are abuse. And as you abuse your child, that eventually leads to more abuse, which can ultimately lead to death. I bring up the death aspect because this is serious. This is not a case of like, oh, you just don't like their parenting techniques. Like, this is beyond parenting techniques. Like, this is a matter of abuse. And a lot of these children cannot speak for themselves. They are depending on their parents to do the right thing for them and to speak for them. And when we teach parents, right, when we teach people that extreme tactics is how you beat autism, then we're teaching people that they can do things that they would normally not think about doing to a neurotypical child, and we're telling them it's okay. And I saw the Stauffers on that route. Like, looking back, I think they were on that route. Like, some of the things they were doing were not going to help their child, and they weren't going to help their child correct any behaviors that they felt needed correcting. I hope this kind of helps you understand how the Stauffers came to be and why I'm glad that they decided this wasn't for them. Now, what would have really made me happy is knowing that they never went on this journey in the first place. Now, one thing I learned is that a lot of adoption agencies don't take children with quote-unquote significant special needs. Now, I don't know what they define that as, but what I did see was a lot of them would direct you towards agencies that did deal with children who had significant needs. And frankly, I think that is probably a better route because they have more experience and can really help families understand what it is they're signing up for. I really think that the Stauffers needed more guidance. I don't know if they would have listened, right? Maybe that's why they went out of the country, because places here were kind of like, I'm going to tell you the down and dirty, and they were just like, maybe they just didn't want to hear it. I don't know. But I think that this whole situation should have never happened, because it doesn't seem like they are the kind of family, right, who is willing to empathize with their child and give their child what they need, even if that means sacrificing something, right? I'm happy that they made their decision to let their child go somewhere better. I don't think they should have made the decision in the first place to get him. Then they weren't ready. They most likely caused him more pain, you know, in the end. But I think now they are starting to make the right decisions. Their journey to forgiveness is, you know, it's their journey to have. I just wish them, I wish them the best, and that they grow and become better folks. I also hope that beautiful little boy gets everything that he needs and wants, because, you know, this sucks, you know, and he absolutely does not deserve any of it. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Ashley C, and I can't wait to see you guys another time. Hit the subscribe button. I mean, you'll be in for a wild ride because it's my first video. So yeah, subscribe. I hope that the 10 people who watched this enjoyed it. Feel free to comment, like, and yeah, I'm also gonna leave some YouTubers who are autistic, some autistic YouTubers down below, that a few of them I really like. I'm not gonna name all of them though, because I really do need to end the video, but watch them, or at least like check some of them out and subscribe to them, support them, and I can't wait to see you next time.